Well, welcome to this edition of the Iowa blog. We are live. We're going to try just in here in a second. We'll get Rich in as well, but Rich, no reason to push any of the buttons. We're already live. Good to see you, fellas.
Good evening.
Kevin, how are you?
Hey, doing well, doing well.
Okay, Mr. Shorts is sitting out a lot of shorts here recently. You've got quite the short team.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of help, so that's good.
Yeah, you are, as they would say, you're very long on shorts.
Okay.
I think we've had 31 in the last 3 days. Is that an accurate count?
Real close to that. Yeah. We're doing 10s and 12s, so yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty pretty outstanding. So we're certainly long on material now, and that's a good thing. And Captain Kirk, I understand they've got you on a project which is an authentic version of the two tablets written in Paleo Hebrew.
Yes, I took about 2 solid days, but yes, I have sent it all to them, so we'll see what they do with it.
Okay, so you've actually finished it.
Oh yeah.
Wow, thank you. That's
You're quite
they asked
welcome.
me to give them a rendering of that, and I said I think that's way above my pay grade. I don't see so they didn't give up. They went to you.
Well, that's if the last resort.
No, you were the first resort. That is excellent.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think you want to make it for a book cover, and then do a song around it and the like. So it'll be nice to have two tablets written as they would have originally been written. We'll actually be able to hold yours up and see how well you did.
Oh,
right.
We're going to see those tablets soon enough. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward
I hope
seeing
I hope we're right.
that worked out.
Uh,
I'm saying that we do have over on the right. We have Rich. Rich, can you let's see if your mic is live for family hour here? No, I don't think so. I can hear you, but I don't hear you in my headset. But
Yeah.
Won't hear me in the headset because we're local.
okay, can you fellas hear him?
I can
barely.
when he
I
speaks
can
up.
barely hear.
So anyway, we'll do the best we can. We did get a light on him, but I think we have a fairly dark camera over there in the corner. Of course, we're also trying to entice Leia to sit in the happy chair over there too. So we'll have to see how that works down in the future.
How's this, guys?
We
Oh, much
are
better, yeah.
approaching Shabua. Shabua is going to be Sunday evening for the early birds. It could be Monday evening if you wanted to postpone it. It's one of those that's right on the cusp. The timing of when you would celebrate it, whether it would be Sunday evening or Monday evening, really depends on when you celebrated Passover.
Mhm.
This past season. If you celebrated it early, which we did, remember we said,
Yes.
wait, choice we
Yes,
could
did I.
celebrate on Saturday evening or on Friday evening, and we decided we were going to Friday evening because it would coordinate with
Good
this
family.
program, and
Yeah.
it was a really close call. But you're in the same position now with Shabua. You can pick either one of the two times. And actually, we had a letter from a friend in Alaska, saying
Oh yeah.
this time of year we don't ever get a sunset. So how are we to time the Mikra? And somebody says, I think that same person that asked us says, we've been doing it based upon sunset in Jerusalem.
Mhm.
Yes.
It doesn't really work here, and I thought that was a pretty good solution.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
We have been inundated these last few days, of course, with news items of all magnitude. So the world is galvanizing now around the Marxist Muslims who are promoting, I think, murderous madness.
Yes.
It's become vogue to march and pretend that you're a peacenik, that you're rallying to oppose genocide, and that you're against colonization, apartheid, to Israel are the most vicious colonialists in the history
In here.
since Islam's invention and 14 centuries ago. They have not only colonized everything from Morocco to India, they're ruthless, and they always impose apartheid. In 100% of the cases, if you're not a Muslim, you have no rights. And in many cases, when they take over land, it's convert to Islam or die. And if you're not a Muslim, you pay exorbitant taxes and you have absolutely no political autonomy or authority whatsoever. So it is egregiously mired in apartheid and subjugation and persecution. You look at these Islamic countries as recently as 1948, there were many hundreds of thousands of Jews in these countries, and now there are essentially none. It's been a 99% degradation of the Jewish population. And when you think about that sort of thing, one of the things that comes to mind is that they're accusing Israel of genocide when the Islamic population in Israel has increased, like 400%, not 40%, hasn't decreased, 98% like it has in the Islamic countries. It's increased 400, 500% over this period of time. And yet they want to pretend that it's Jews that are perpetrating genocide when the exact opposite is not only true, but it's obvious. And so we're entering a time where truth has been upended, and those who have squandered a college education are the most shrill voices for utter and complete stupidity. We are sanctifying ignorance, irrationality, immorality, and the top educational institutions in America, which are now nothing but group indoctrination think tanks that are manufacturing complete and utter morons. I don't think I've ever seen anything that was as universally wrong, as universally immoral, as universally ignorant, irrational, as what we're witnessing in these protests amongst Marxists and Muslims against Israel. This is the worst really the world has ever been. Have you ever?
I can't think of anything even close.
Have you seen anything that's like this anywhere? You're a student of history, Kirk.
No, not at all.
Would parallel this.
It's like they wanted to go back to the 60s and, in March and they don't have a cause, and back their cause is horrible.
Right.
It's just sick. And so they don't have the brains to put it together. It's I don't know what to say about it other than it's just awful.
It's hard to fathom because everything that these young people, the under 30s, are saying is the opposite of what's true. Their voices are shrill, they're enraged, they're violent about it. Their belief system is beyond the reach of evidence. And literally, their position is the opposite of what's true. Muslims have tried to perpetrate genocide against Jews and really all humankind for 1,400 years. I mean, I don't think any of these idiots have ever read the Quran. The 8th surah of the Quran tells Muslims they must continue to fight and kill until the entire world is subjugated to Islam. Until Islam is the only religion on earth, all Muslims must die fighting and killing for Allah. That's genocide of the entire race. I mean, you've got to die killing.
Yeah.
So it's genocide of humanity. And in the first 100 years of this deadly religion, Muslims killed 200 million people. That was a third of the Earth's population. And the battle scars of that are still evident because they still control all of those countries. No democracy, no rights for women, no peace, still enraged against Jews, still demeaning to any other religion. They're as bad as people have ever been, and yet you've got the most liberal now that are marching and campaigning for the least liberal. I mean, every Islamic country is a fascist country. You've got the socialists partnering with the fascists only because they share a hatred of Jews.
Well, it can
But
be.
that's what it's going to get bad. He said it's going to get so bad it's going to be the worst experience in all of human history. And the numbers of Jews that are going to die are 2/3 of the entire world's Jewish population, which is about 10 million people over the next 8 years. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised what we're witnessing, but still it's hard to take. All right, so let's return to where we were. I will say that because Shabuah is upcoming, normally we would do the family hour on Shabuah, but the reason that we're not this evening is that we did some 30 programs already on the Katsir harvest, done 30 programs that are focused on Shabuah. We'll return to those shortly. In fact, I'll do one of them tomorrow, which will be in advance of our celebration of Shabuah. So we will do a program tomorrow on Shabuah, and we have already done 30 some odd on the Katsir harvest, which are all directed at Shabuah. So we're not shortchanging Shabuah. Shabuah is the next Moed Mikra to be filled. Fulfilled. It will be fulfilled a year from now on the 22nd of May. In fact, it's a little less than a calendar year from now. It is a year from Yahweh's reckoning from Sunday evening, but less than a year from a solar calendar perspective to this next Shabuah. And the next Shabuah is the harvest. We're expecting to be separated from this planet at this time. And everything that we study, that we read, that we hear seems to corroborate that is God's timing, that this is where we are in his timeline. And it's going to get really, really bad. So we're going to leave as much of a legacy as we possibly can for people to listen to read, to hear, to act upon, because there really isn't anybody else speaking for Yahweh. And to benefit from him, to survive what's coming, you need to listen. So this is the passage that we were at the conclusion of our last program. It's from Yirmiyah 6:9. And we're in Yirmiyah because of what the prophet had to say that was relevant to what we were reading and studying in Zechariah, and also what we read in Chronicles 6. And it reads as follows: Thus says Yahweh of the spiritual implements. They will either be thoroughly and effectively gleaned with a second harvest of what remains, or they'll be among the foolish who are abused. Similar to the trindle, the stem, or the vine, as a surviving remnant of Yisrael, the individuals who either strive against and struggle against God, or those who engage and endure with the Almighty. Returning your hand and influence at this time in the manner of one who gathers in the harvest, or one who fences off and restrains, who cuts off the clusters of grapes from the vine and either cherishes and fortifies or disposes of them over and around the branches comprised of the valued or rejected. This is one of those spectacular passages, Kirk, that you particularly like, where each word can have a positive or a negative connotation.
Oh, yeah, very much.
And a time where it's going to be fish or cut bait. It's a time where it's either life or death, a time where there really isn't a lot of middle ground. So if you're a Israelite, we're approaching a time where you're either going to be harvested or pruned, where you're either going to be gleaned in the secondary harvest or you're going to be abused by those who have come to attack Israel. You'll either be gathered in or fenced in. So that's, I think this is one of those places where you could take every one of those words and render them favorably.
Yes.
You could take every one of them and render them negatively.
Mhm.
But I think the most telling is it's one or the other for,
You know who you are.
yeah, depending on who you are, what choices you make at this time. So not only was al repeated, it has a decidedly positive and wholly negative connotation. And alal, which was alal, is the one that is the first verb there. They will either be thoroughly and effectively gleaned with the secondary harvest of what remains, or be among the foolishly who were ruthlessly abused, was the definition, the extrapolation, or an amplified fashion of alal. And anytime we see a word like this, particularly as a verb that is repeated, it means that the understanding of it, the influence of it is exponential, or that it can convey everything that word might otherwise say. So if you have a word like kodesh, for example, it's not a verb, it's an adjective. But in kodesh, what you're saying is we should consider every aspect of what it means to be set apart,
Yeah.
separated, unique, uncommon, which would be non-religious, non-political, and unique in this regard. So it's kodesh. We have to consider every aspect of the word. And here, alal would be the same thing. That's one of the reasons why I said, well, let's just run down the list. This is all that word can mean. Let's convey it all. And it means that we're either joining other immortal members of the covenant family on Teruah, or being separated from them. And as we learned from Yashaya and Yoel in the prelude to this event, the mortal remnant of Yisrael, well, they're going to be ravaged by jihadists. So this will be a time where you don't want to be estranged from God. You want to be, if you're coming to Jerusalem for the sacrifice of the red heifer on Teruah, the day of the herald, on the Shabbat of September 24th of 2033, you want to be in Captain Kirk's white chariot. He has claimed shotgun on it, and that's where Jews the world over who have demonstrated that they're not hostile to God's name, they're not religious, they're not political, and therefore they're at least open to being prepared for the Messiah Dod's return. They will be brought to Jerusalem. And those that you don't pick up are going to have to tangle with the black chariot, and that's not a good outcome. So we also know in Yeshaya 17, as it winds down, this would be Isaiah 17, that there will be 2 or 3 left on the uppermost branches, and 4 or 5 on the branches that were cut away, representing Yehudim and Israelites, respectively. And these are the ones that the Zeroah, who is responsible for these end gatherings, are going to protect. The ones that are harvested the day before, they're already now into the immortal realm. And those who are left behind are going to be protected that evening, so the next day they're prepared to benefit from the sacrifice of the red heifer or the Adamah Parah. So this is the story that we learn in Yeshaya 17. And it is the Zeroah, the one who has cultivated these harvests, who is responsible for the ingathering, that's going to protect uh, these individuals and extend Yahweh's influence over them. And even among them, there will be a percentage who remain religious while others are finally, hopefully, interested in developing a relationship with Yahweh. Those ready to be transformed by the sacrifice of the red heifer will be protected, while those clinging to the old ways will be disposed of in the most inaccessible of places, Sheol. We have reached a time where there's going to be very few people considered neutral. You're either there to enter the millennial Shabbat and be perfected for that moment and be a mortal who gets to begin the celebration of the millennial Shabbat with Yahweh as a Yehud, or you were part of the Yehudim that were and Israelites that were harvested on the evening before, so you're now immortal, or you're among those who are eliminated by the black chariot so that we're not bothered by the religious and political going into this restoration of Gan Eden. And then there's a group of Goyim who are going to be the workers of this 1,000-year celebration of life on the planet, that we're not overtly religious, not overtly political, and certainly we're not anti-Semitic. So there's not going to be a whole lot of youngsters in that group, from what we can see. But that's it. And what I would think is likely is that we're going to reach a time where it's going to be tougher if you're overtly religious or so defiant. I mean, you've made it all the way through the time of Jacob's troubles, and you're still defiant in favor of your religion. That at that point, it's going to be really tough for God to say, okay, I'm just going to eliminate your souls and no consequence for you. I think we're getting to a period where God's going to say, if you were against me, God speaking, all the way through the bitter end, to the time of Jacob's troubles, and still leading people away from me, fooling those that the rabbis like to influence, then, and if you're one of those that are coming to Israel to harm Jews, to rape and plunder and abduct them, you're one of those that are egging them on as a Marxist. I don't think you're going to get a pass at this point. I don't think it's going to be just the end of your life. You guys agree? I mean, that's.
Oh, absolutely. I said I would hope not that they would get a pass.
Yes, I think it's off to Sheol. I think this is going to be a time where those who are not invited into the covenant or into the millennial Shabbat would go from 99% of them simply ceasing to exist, no reward, no penalty for them, which is the time that we're in currently. So I think we're reaching a time where it's going to be close to 99% the other way. You don't want to cling to Judaism or Israeli politics into the end. Now, for those that are listening and say, why you keep on talking about Judaism and Israeli politics, is that to infer that other political mantras are acceptable or that other religions might be acceptable? No. The difference is that, for the most part, if you're involved in Christianity, you're involved in Islam, but you're not anti-Semitic, you're not trying to hunt down Jews, you're not encouraging Muslims to hunt down Jews, for the most part, God doesn't care about you. God cares about those people who influence his people, who mislead his people. And particularly now, he's coming back for Israel. So it's just that God doesn't have a lot of interest in them. And so if God doesn't have much interest in them, and we speak for God, we don't have much interest in them. It's not to say that they're right, because they aren't. They're dead wrong. It's just that it's not God's plan. Up for this next year in this Shavuot harvest, if you are a Goyim who is in love with Israel, supportive of Israel. You would be among those that say, I stand with Israel. I oppose those who oppose Israel. And you embrace the Torah and accept Yahweh as your God, and come to appreciate everything that King Daud has done for us in fulfilling the Mikra. And you accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, you can be part of this Shabuah harvest. You can't do it independent of Israel, but you can definitely do it grafted into Israel as someone who supports God's people. But after the Shabuah harvest, it's going to be really exceedingly difficult as a goy to be part of God's family, because you got two events coming up, and everything we read about Teruah says it's a gleaning of olives, and therefore it's addressing Israelites.
Mhm.
The very fact that it says 2 or 3 from the uppermost branches and 4 or 5 from the branches that were cut away, we're dealing with the branch that Yahweh loves the most, the uppermost branch, which is Yahud, and we're dealing with the branches that were cut away, which were the tribes of Israel.
Yep.
And so we have 2 references that both say Israel, olives and the numbers, and the description of those 2 places. So every indication is that Teruah harvest is principally Yehudim and the Israelites, and then this final remnant is all Israelites. And God's going to find his people from around the world. It's all Israelites. So Shabuah really is the last option off the planet if you are a goy. So you really have now 12 months. What we don't know is whether or not anybody that is a goy that survives to the end, that is not religious, not political, has a great attitude, and has the proper aptitude to be useful going forward. We have not been told whether or not those people somehow during the process can come to embrace all that Yahweh represents and actually become covenant. My expectation is that I think would be fair, appropriate, and possible.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely possible, but it's going to be such a bad time physically on earth that it's going to be paradigm shifting for people. You know, people will it'll be a crucible. People will either turn towards God, their God, reinforcing their biases, or they'll just completely, everything I knew isn't showing what's happening now. And they will paradigm shift the other direction, looking for something, but then being able to engage and be a part of Israel will be very, very difficult during that time. I definitely wouldn't want to have that be my role. I have to bank on that being a way in,
Will you?
Anything you just said. What we know is that there are going to be these groups of people. There'll be those who have been harvested either on Shabuah or Teruah, and they're going to be in the front row seats as we experience the fulfillment of Teruah and the sacrifice of the red heifer, and then 10 days later, Yahweh and Daud's return. They're already immortal.
Mm-hmm.
They can live on earth, or they can live among the stars. You are immortal. You get the big inheritance. You're going to live forever. You're perfected. You're part of God's family. That is the best option by far. And then there's going to be those Israelites who come back, whether they're already in Israel and have survived the time of Jacob's troubles, but they have not, with the very fact they missed the Teruah harvest, that the evening before the sacrifice of the red heifer, means they did not accept the terms and conditions of the covenant. 5 of them. They have not yet embraced Daud's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim. They don't know and understand what the Mikra all mean. They have likely not returned to Yahweh's name. They've just gone to the point where, okay, we realize Judaism bad, Israeli politics bad,
No, we're good.
can't save us. We're going to pull away from all of this. which at least gives them the possibility of temporary reconciliation. So that would be the second group. The third group will be Goyim, and it's possible on the Goyim. The Goyim are going to be the workers going forward in the millennial Shabbat, but everybody's going to work. God likes workers, as He likes people that engage and are willing to roll up their sleeves and get things done. He's not a workaholic, but He definitely is a God who values work and likes those people who want to engage and get things done. We're not going to be sitting around eating bonbons. So those
Not with his Choter.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's absolutely true. So I would think that those Goyim could include some people who are prepared to be part of the covenant, that somehow bucked the odds and decided that it's inappropriate to be condemning Israel or be a Christian or be political, and so I think there will be some Goyim that come into this process in a very positive place relative to God. And our role here is for us to tell you what you need to do to be part of the Shavuot harvest, what you need to do to be part of the Teruah harvest, how you can benefit from the sacrifice of the red heifer, when Dode and Yahweh are returning, and what roles they play in your life. We can equip you with everything you need to know to make the right decision, to be part of those choices. We are not called to tell you what a neutral position ought to be. That's just not.
Right.
We can tell you what's wrong and we'll send you into Sheol. We can tell you what's right and we'll send you into heaven. We can tell you what would at least get you to the point that you're part of that final remnant of Israelites who go into the millennial Shabbat. The thing that we don't have a message on and don't want a message on is, well, can I be half baked? Can I be a little bit right, a little bit wrong, and can I get in by the skin of my teeth at the last minute?
There is no gray in Sadak. There is no gray in Sadak.
I think even if we knew what the answer was to that, I wouldn't care much for it. So there are those who are ready to be transformed by the sacrifice of the red heifer, and they're going to be protected, while those clinging to the old ways will be disposed of, and that is what we're moving towards. So this brings us to the conditions that necessitated the Nakri and the Choter, anticipating the final allocation of souls, where Yahweh wanted to give everyone the best possible opportunity to make an informed and rational choice. That is the purpose of the Nesh sign that God has asked me to write, that this comprised also of these programs that we're doing that are going to be broadcast for the world to see and uplifted for the world to read. So God is doing everything He can to give people this opportunity. It's why the Nakri prophecy was so prominent in Solomon's speech dedicating the home to Yahweh's name, the first temple. It's why most of Yeshaya, Isaiah, is written to herald the arrival of the Choter, the Nakri, the Zeroah, the Adamah Parah, the man from Edom. God wants to give everybody best possible opportunity to make a good decision. So anticipating the final allocation of souls, Yahweh is doing all of this, engaging again, doing everything He can to encourage His people to return to Him. But of course, it's difficult when there are so few willing to listen to the criteria upon which the decisions will be made. And in all of Israel and throughout the millennia, there was no one willing to pay attention to God or give God any opportunity to speak through them. Even in the famed Shema Yisrael of Devarim 6, where Yahweh's people are asked to listen to God. Do they?
No.
Turn the
No.
Il in Devarim 6 is an opportunity to blabber twice a day. They can't even follow that instruction. And listen, instead, pronouncing the Shema twice a day is how they think they're supposed to fulfill it. It's almost as stupid as putting a stupid
box
on your head, or wrapping your arm so that you can have another box on the back of your hand. It's just utterly moronic. I guess it's about as it makes as much sense as pretending that we're being godly by putting the kippah on our head when it's a circular sun disk, and they don't even bother to say, it's really interesting. The popes and the Roman Catholics wear the same thing.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Where did Yahweh say, I want you to put a round beanie on your head? Somebody today was challenged me when I said, they had this picture of this boy. They were obviously reading the Talmud, and it says, pray for Israel. And I said, no, stop yabbering, start listening to Yahweh. And he wrote back, no, Hashem. Let's just have a little contest here. I'll show you in the Torah where God says that his name is Yahweh. Why don't you try to find a reference in the Torah where God says his name is the name? We'll have a little contest. You ready for this contest?
Yeah. 7,009.
Nope, not going to run that test. I already know the answer to that test. Don't like the answer. Yahweh queries. Through whom can I choose to speak? Who will be responsive? Shall I consistently communicate? Who will listen? Peel, imperfect, first person, singular, cohorted. And who can I choose to testify as a witness to sustain and warn? What shall I use to responsibly admonish and assist? Who will continually speak like me? Hiphil, imperfect, cohortative, first person, singular, such that they will listen, that they will hear without relenting, called imperfect. These figures of speech that I'm giving, like Hiphil, imperfect, cohortative, the reason I share that, it was the Hiphil stem says that the object of the verb becomes a secondary subject. So since this is being spoken in first person by Yahweh, it says this person who would listen becomes a junior Yah. They are effectively speaking for Yahweh with the Hiphil stem. It makes the object a secondary subject. It's pretty cool to have a form of speech that does that. That's what the Hiphil stem does. So Yahweh is saying that this person that would listen to him, and in this case, it was actually speak. This person that will speak like him. Now, the imperfect means that they're going to be a yabberer. God wants us to listen to him, since he always speaks through people. Somebody has to speak for him, and this fella, he loves words. He without ceasing is what the imperfect conjugate means.
Very good.
He likes to talk. My wife is just laughing in the background. The cohortative. You know about the cohortative there?
I do.
You're giggling at me too. You guys just think I'm verbose, don't you?
No.
I
read all those things and listened to every word you said. So yeah, it's just it's a lot of it takes a lot of time too, pal.
Yeah. Boy, they turned down the volume on what you were saying now, so I could barely hear you. But yes, the fact is that the cohortative is first person volition.
Yes.
Hebrew actually has free will is so important and to God that he has a language where he can convey volition, choice, free will, and the first, second, or third person. That's pretty astonishing, really.
Yes. Yeah.
And in fact, it's how I came to know that Dode figured out that he should serve as the Passover lamb and fulfill matzah, and that God agreed with him, is that he wrote his explanations of what he had decided to do in both the cohortative, first person volition, and in the imperative, which conveys second person volition, where he's having a conversation with God.
Mm-hmm.
They both agree. They both want this to happen. So in the cohortative, the speaker, first person speaker, would be expressing their will. So it's God saying, this is what I want. I want someone who will choose to testify as a witness, to sustain and to warn. So pretty interesting that Hebrew has all of that. And then such that they will listen, because before you can speak for God, you first have to listen to him, and you need to do a lot of listening. It was written in the call imperfect. Call means there's not nuance. This is literally, genuinely, actually.
If I can interject for a second, when I did when I was working on the glossary, at the end of it, I did about 10 pages of reducing all of everything you talk about in the cohortative and all on charts. And you can see, and they match exactly what you're saying, and even in more depth. I took I studied everything I could find within it, plus the stuff that you'd sent me years ago, right down to all the helpfulness things. So when you're doing this on your own, you want to find out a little more in depth when you recite these, or when you put these things in the parenthetical. It's nice to have a little chart you could go to and say, well, there it is. That's exactly what that means, and verify, and they can verify it. And I also footnoted everything on where it came from, so they can look it up and say, yeah, that really is the way it works. So we're out there to help you. If you want to just check it, we can.
Yes,
Sorry.
And that's really part of the teaching method that we have adopted. I came up 24 years ago with an exceedingly unique form of amplified translation. It's never been done before. And within that amplified translation, there is the most generic form of the Hebrew text transliterated in the most standard format, so that you can copy and paste it into any search engine and validate the accuracy of that translation. For example, there are a lot of English translations that want to render Shama obey. And so I have it listen. So what you can do is you can put Shama into a search engine and find out, does it mean listen or obey? They're very different things.
Yeah.
To listen. And then we do put every place where it's important to the message being conveyed. We do put the stem and the conjugation, as well as the mood, into the parenthetical. It's a parenthetical actually within the parenthetical, to help explain why we came up with whether the action is ongoing or just for a temporal short period of time. Difference in the imperfect and the perfect. If it's and then how the action between the subject and the object of the verb's action are influenced by it, depending on the nature of that stem. And if you ignore these things, you don't get a full understanding of what God said. And the more detail, the more shading that you can provide, the better a person is positioned to understand what God is conveying. So this goes on to say, behold, they have uncircumcised and stubborn, unresponsive ears. So God is speaking to his people in the last days. And now, this is pretty profound, because when you read the story of the Exodus, what you find is that God gave up on his people. He just gave up on them. He just says, you're miserable, you're obnoxious, you're reprehensible, you're appalling, you're disgusting, you're embittered, you're ungrateful. I want nothing to do with you. And God just went through the motions from that point on. So at the beginning of the Exodus, God's done with Israel. And he later on even talks about how he divorced Israel and they are not his children. He's always held the olive branch out and said, we can rectify this at any moment. But the way that you're going to rectify it is you're going to change. And if you change and return to me, then I will return to you. But I'm not returning to you. I'm going to have nothing to do with you while you're still religious, obnoxious, and political. Nothing. You want to go and erase my name and make it Hashem? That's your choice, but I'm not going to have anything to do with you if you do. So here we are. We are now 3,450 years removed from God telling his people, I'm leaving you alone. You told me to shut up and go away, and I'm happy to do so because I'll convey what I need to convey through 20 prophets between now and then, but I'm not going to hang around you any longer. And now at the end, and we're at the very end, what we read now is God saying, you've got uncircumcised ears. You're stubborn. You're unresponsive. You're incapable of listening. You cannot comprehend, and you have no means to endure. You have no capacity for paying attention or responding. That's a long time to be obnoxious.
Boy, you kidding me?
Saying is that you're so bad, there is nobody. God's saying, I'm looking for somebody that will listen to me, that can speak for me. But how am I to find one when you guys have stubborn, unresponsive ears? You're incapable of listening, comprehending, or enduring with me. God's in a pickle. I got nobody to talk to. We're currently estranged. There's no resolution for that. Now, the way that God goes about finally resolving it, I would say of all the miracles ever performed, would be the one that you'd say, I don't know how you pulled that out or what in the world you thought you were going to, how you were going to make this work. But this is the miracle of miracles, really.
God says, I got to go. Hey, hold on.
The bottom
You
line
don't know it, but I got one in the plans.
One guy, because there's one guy that's willing to listen to me. He's actually going to be a goy. He's going to be an observant foreigner. He's going to know nothing about me when we begin, and I'm going to educate him to the point that he can get my people's attention and get enough of them to change for me to return to them. Now, talk about miracles.
Yeah, that was good.
He is good. He made a Rocky Crag talk. That's why I was told, don't you dare hit that crag. I'm going to take that crag.
He'll hurt his lip.
Do some marvelous things. So he says, so look now and notice the word of Yahweh. It now exists as an insult. To be scorned and disrespected by them. They don't want it. They don't possess it. They don't delight in it, nor do they favor it or prioritize it. Jeremiah 6:10. That fellow's
bad.
As bad as it gets, right?
Yes.
God says, so through whom can I choose to speak that's going to respond to me? The answer is no one. And who can I choose to testify as a witness to sustain and warn my people? No one.
No, that
No one. You got all these rabbis that are pretending to be hot stuff. You know, they're in little fancy outfits. They got their big beards. They They got their Talmud, they got their big payroll, and nothing.
At the Red Hat.
Absolutely nothing. They're totally and completely retarded when it comes to knowing Yahweh. They listen to other rabbis. They don't listen to God.
Yes.
Behold, they have uncircumcised and stubborn, unresponsive ears, and they are incapable of listening, comprehending, or enduring. This is a blanket indictment for the leadership of Israel. Political, religious, societal. It's a blanket endorsement. God saying, even at the end, you're incapable of listening, comprehending, or enduring. So now, notice the word of Yahweh exists as an insult to be scorned and disrespected by them. You know how you know that's true? What's the single most repeated name throughout the witness of Yahweh?
Oh, Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Yeah.
How many times do you find Yahweh on the lips or on the pages of something that a rabbi has to say?
Never.
Or
They won't do it. Won't do it. Abhor it.
So, the word of God means nothing to them. They scorn it. They disrespect it. They don't want it. They don't possess it. They don't delight in it. They don't favor it. They do not prioritize it. So, that put God in a position where he says, I'm not going to change what I've said. What I've said is what I've said, and that's it. You either embrace what I've said, accept what I've said, deal with what I've said, or we're done. So he actually had to go out and find somebody that would do that, who would go where the words lead. Wherever the words led, he'd go there, just because he was willing and interested in listening to God, and I didn't have any reason not to trust him, not to enjoy where God was leading. And the result, that's really the nature of these books. I've read everyone's testimony that has presented it so far on the Facebook group, Yada Yahweh site, and to a person, they all said the same thing. They were
He cut out good there.
Yeah.
somebody got books that I had written, and they started reading.
Mhm.
Everything made sense. It all resonated. It all checked every box. This is exactly as we would expect God to be. Had 8 years of exchanging emails on what God said, because listening to God and thinking about what he had to say and learning and understanding, it's the most fun you can have. So
11 years.
11 years. Well, I think some of that was, we were actually together, but I'm lucky. I'm not going to argue with my wife. Lucky was the last of the prophets in 447 BCE. From that point until Teruah of 2001, there had been no one through whom Yahweh could speak. For there to be a final Ud, witness, to admonish and assist Yisrael and Yehudim, someone would have to Shama listen. And I've done exactly that now for 24 years. And I listened for 24 years before I was finally asked to talk. Yeah, we did once a week. We did a family hour on the Blog Talk Radio. And the reason for that was just mostly to help the family. We didn't speak outside the family. It was only known within the covenant family. We did it just to have some fellowship among the people who were
Yeah.
the covenant family. And I think for part of that, because of the people that were drawn to it, we did almost as much harm as we did good. We certainly were devoted to doing the right thing for the right reason, but boy, we did attract some people that would have been better off forever outside of our company. But in terms of turning on the lights and the cameras and conveying all of this to God's people openly, fully, completely, exuberantly, we listened for 24 years. The testimony of what I heard God say is now in these books that sit behind me. They're all free at yadayada.com. You guys have read all of them. And I'm hearing that we have many audio problems on this broadcast. We don't know what the audio problems are caused, but we have many, as I am told. So, fellas, I don't know if we should continue with because we have the audio problems, or if we should call it and see if we can do the second hour as a second stream. But this is the challenge, of course, of doing a live show, and I think we're using a little different approach this time. We're using a different switch than we normally use, which may be part of the audio interface issue. Yes, we are. This is the first time we've used a much more sophisticated switch, as opposed to there is so that you know, there's a product out that is live streaming audio for dummies. It's this little crimson red box that you plug your everything into, and it just magically sweeps it right up into your computer and takes it online, and it works beautifully. You have no control over anything, but it just works. Multiple audio feeds, you need more sophisticated switches, and originally I found and I had already bought 5 or 6 of them, and they found really a top end unit. Getting it to cooperate with all of its features has not been something we've had much luck with in the past, which is why we keep unplugging it and going back into the more simplistic choice. So what do you think?
Oh, well, we missed a lot of words. A lot of you. Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is just end this program, and then we'll try to bring another one up live.